Hello, hello, hello. Man, I am so excited that you decided to join this wealth mastermind with myself and my good friends. I'm telling you, these next couple of sessions are definitely going to be some things for you to really think about. One of the things that I really want every person to do, men and women, is learn how to think for yourself. Like when you see things going on in the world, like ask questions like, does this make sense? How did this happen? You cannot necessarily believe everything that you hear on the news just because a news reporter says, oh, nothing's wrong, banking's going to be just fine, big banks aren't in trouble, these are just little banks, or whatever you hear. Don't necessarily just take it. Always be willing to study yourself, ask the questions, and then make sure you connect with people in a wealth community where you guys can kind of debate, banner ideas. Doesn't mean that you'll always agree with everything, but I think it is important, if you're going to be successful today, to be a thinker, right? And we already know it's not just about the money, right? Wealth just gives you the options. It gives you the ability to be able to make the choices that you want to make, that you feel like are best for yourself, for your family, and for your community, and ultimately the world. So I'm so excited because today I'm going to be joined by a very, very good friend of mine who actually has been a wealth mentor of mine for quite a few years. And I was reading her materials, watching her on YouTube. And I was like, one day, honey, we're going to be friends. And guess what? One day I was in Vegas and we were both speaking at this amazing, powerful women's conference. And I went up to her, introduced myself, and I'll tell you what, honey, the rest was just history after that. Okay. I was like, okay, girl, I need the number because yes. So I know you love her too. You probably know her from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which she's also a co-founder in that with her and Robert Kiyosaki, and they're definitely making a huge imprint. And her voice is really, really strong when it comes specifically to women, because women economically are the ones usually left in bad, financial or shape, if indeed that they weren't in control of their finances and not really concerning themselves with money, which they need to, because money impacts where we eat, what we eat, where we eat, what we drive, what we wear, where we sleep, our zip code. It impacts every single area, not just of our lives, but also our family lives. And everyone knows when a woman is wealthy, what is she going to do? She's going to empower and impact the people that she loves. So without further ado, I want to welcome my good friend, wealth mentor, Kim Kiyosaki. Applause, applause, applause,
So great to
applause.
be with you. So great to be with everybody today.
You too, Kim. How are you doing, girl?
I'm doing great, and I love the intro because you say, think for yourself, question. I was taught to question everything, and there's so much information out there now, and there's so many different opinions and theories that you really do have to question everything you're being told, and you really have to think for yourself. It's something that takes attention and takes time, because it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do, to think for yourself and question everything you're being taught. I think it's so important, and especially today.
Especially today. We were talking about some things right before this, but we'll get into that. But I want to go back a little bit. How did you kind of even get started in this? I mean, did you grow up knowing, hey, one day I'm going to really, become wealthy, help a lot of people become wealthy because I just want the freedom? Did you always kind of know that you were on that path?
No, no. I knew I was on the path when I was in my 20s. I knew I was on the path that I wanted my own business. I love business. I had a marketing degree. I was working in advertising, but the story is I got fired first time from my very first job out of college after 9 months. And the company hired me back, and I got fired again, this time after 6 months. And as you know, Jewel, the subtitle of my book, Rich Woman, is because I hate being told what to do. And obviously that was the case. So I'm not very good at taking shouldn't say taking direction, but I'm not very good at being told what to do. So I knew I wanted my own business. And I knew nothing about money. I knew nothing about investing. I think the only course I took was an accounting course, which really is very different from investing. But I guess the lesson, or what I want to tell people, is you don't have to have a special degree, or you don't have to have special knowledge. You can start today. You can learn it's actually easier to start today because you don't have to unlearn anything, but you can begin today and start getting educated and start preparing for your future. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. No,
So do you feel like that, you realize you're on this path, you didn't like being told what to do. How much would you say relationships? Because I'm definitely a firm believer that our destiny kind of moves at the speed of our relationships. And, if you want to become something, you've got to start to partner and connect with that. How much would you say relationships, being in the right relationships, help to really kind of unwrap or unfold your gifts and kind of bring you into a state of blossoming and coming into your purpose?
That's huge. Matter of fact, when I met Robert on our first date, he said, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I said, "I want my own business." But I never grew up around entrepreneurs. I didn't know anything about building a business. And he said, "Well, I've started many businesses and all of my friends are entrepreneurs." So they became mentors to me. And within 3 months, I had my first business. And from then on, I understood the value of mentors. And I have mentors for everything. I have mentors for business. I have mentors for investing. I have mentors for fitness. I have mentors for my emotional and mental well-being. I have mentors for everything. If there's any shortcut to business and to investing, it would be to have a mentor. And a mentor for me is what we call a real teacher, somebody who's actually done what it is you want to do, not somebody who's going to tell you what to do but didn't do it themselves. So real mentors like you, Jewel, who are out there doing it every day, and you're passing on your experience and your successes and your failures, because it's all part of the learning.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I think that, because I think what happens if we are not intentional about growing, then there ends up really not being any growth. I think it becomes scary when everyone in our lives maybe looks up to us, but we don't have anybody that we can look up to say, be my eyes for me, be my ears for me, because this is what I want out of life. And so now I'm going to have to connect because I can't take myself to the next level. And the reality is we all have blind spots. There's a scripture in the Bible that says that a man is always right in his own eyes. In other words, everyone has a blind spot to where it could possibly be an area of growth if we had the right mentors. And so I really want to encourage you guys that are watching right now, pick up Kim's book, Rich Woman. I've got a book out there right now, Mind of a Millionaire. I think that, reading, asking questions, having a book club where you can kind of debate and banter ideas is very, very important. So you had your first business after 3 months. Obviously,
let me add to that, Jewel, what you're saying is it's so important to have people to learn together with, to grow together with. One thing that I've done over the years is I've always had a small group of women. We do like a book study on a business book or a personal development book. And then we can bounce ideas off of each other. And we also are all business owners. So we'll get together. It's like, well, here's the problem I have. Has anybody had this problem? How did you solve it? Same with investing. I think these small get together with small groups of women or like-minded individuals, doesn't have to be women, but like-minded individuals with similar goals, similar aspirations is so, so helpful. So helpful. Some of the most successful people I know, was one of the keys to their success.
Yeah. I think we were talking one time and you told me that's kind of how you do your meetings. You don't go in and just say, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this.
It's Buster.
It's a think tank.
Yeah. It's a creative
opportunity.
Yes. And you let people, sometimes the most amazing ideas come from the most unexpected places. We have our CFO the other day comes up with a marketing idea. I'm like, really? Wow, look at that. And so as long as you give permission to, just anything, there's no such thing as a stupid idea in our company. Everybody can say whatever. And usually one idea then sparks an idea, sparks another idea. And the next thing you know, you've got this great creation in the making. So yeah, I'm all for micromanaging. Thinking you're the smartest person in the room is the key to disaster.
And I think you see people do that when they have, large insecurities, kind of lack maturity. Because I think
Yeah.
the more I grow, the more I realize, hey, I need help, and
Yeah.
I want to hear, what is your idea? I want to hear, what are your thoughts? And I'm not afraid of anybody making a mistake. You know what I mean? I want it to be a growth environment where people feel appreciated and valued, because I've kind of learned that if I put focus on a person's value, not on their weakness, but on their value, that I'm going to be able to pull the best out of them and get them in their genius. And now next thing you know, you have this amazing group of geniuses, and maybe they didn't all know they had a genius in them, but when they
Yeah.
came on your team, they realized it because you really valued that.
Yeah. And if they're not making mistakes, then they're not learning, then they're not growing. You don't want them making the same mistake again and again and again. But if they make a mistake, it's because we encourage people to make as many mistakes as they can, because they're pushing the envelope. They're seeing what can be done. Nobody knows how far they can go until they've gone too far. Right? So sometimes they go too far. We're like, okay, what did we learn? What do we need to correct? But yeah, we're always wanting everybody to really get out of their comfort zone as much as possible. And I think today people want to be in their comfort zone, especially given what's going on in the world. Everybody's kind of like hunkering down and like, I just want to be comfortable. Well, that's not going to get you anywhere. That's not going to get you anywhere. If you're going to grow, you've got to keep pushing. You got to keep learning. You got to keep growing. And the only way you do that is by taking action.
Taking action, which leads me to the next point. Let's talk a little bit about risk, because I am naturally a risk taker. And I think, well, let me say this. I don't think I've always been. I grew up with risk takers, especially my father. My father is a big risk taker. So a lot of it was kind of learned behavior for me, where I would see him take these, huge risks. And then as a result, get huge wins. And he also took some huge losses too. But I think it sparked something in me as a child. And then when I became an adult, as I started kind of looking around the landscape, you had people who took big risk, and then you had other people who took no risk, little risk. And I didn't like their results so much.
Yeah.
Talk about
inspiring either. It's not inspiring,
It's not. So talk about the importance of that and what that looks like for you.
Well, especially when it comes to money, people say, investing is very risky. But we always say it's not the investment that's risky, it's the uneducated investor that's risky. So I don't feel like a lot of what I do is risky. A lot of what I do is going into the unknown. I will go into an unknown area and just start going, start moving forward. But that's part of the educational experience. Is I think one of the things that people think is risky is because it's unknown. But as soon as you get a little education, as soon as you get a little experience, then you get a little more confident, then you keep moving forward. But people don't like dealing with unknowns. They want the knowns. The magic is going into the unknown, and where the growth happens is when you go into the unknown, things you don't know. I mean, for example, I'm learning right now, I'm in South Carolina. I have a 15-foot Boston whaler, and I'm learning the tides, and I'm learning when the high tides are and the low tides. I'm learning where the mud flats are and the oyster beds are, because I don't want to get stuck on one in the middle of the day. But it's all very unknown, and it's kind of, I'm like, oh, I've got a teacher, I've got an instructor that's teaching me how to do this. But again, that first time getting in the boat, it's like, first time you're riding a bicycle, you're like, I'm not quite sure, I don't feel comfortable. But then you do it again and again, and it becomes very natural. So I think one of the keys for people in growth is get into the unknown, get into things you don't know. Don't keep doing the same thing that you know, because that's really boring and comfortable. That's not you, Jewel. You're one of the people that always goes into the unknown, and we tend to act first and think later, you and I.
Absolutely. I mean, you're right. There's never a dull moment.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful because it gives you an opportunity to continue to discover things about yourself.
Yeah.
What you can do, what your abilities are, where you can go. And it ends up being a very, a quite an exciting life. Now, of course, education plays a part too. And we're not talking about taking crazy risk, right? We're talking about saying, hey, we need to take risk in life in order to grow. Because this is what I found most of the time, Kim. If I want to educate myself, right? But then there comes a time after I've educated myself, if I don't execute or implement or take initiative, there's not going to really be any real growth. I know people who are just like, hoarders of knowledge, which is great. But then if you don't take action, you can end up knowing a lot, but still having a little.
Right. That's exactly why I wrote my second book, It's Rising Time, because I saw so many women, they would read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, they'd read Rich Woman, they'd attend seminars, they'd go to online podcasts and things, but they never took that first step. And that first step for me, and what I recommend should be very small. The first step should be very small because you're going to learn. Again, you're going into the unknown. You're going to learn. You're going to make mistakes, and you don't want to make mistakes with a lot of money. Had I started in real estate with a 100-unit apartment building, I'd have lost everything because I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the experience. I didn't have the education. So just, start small. I was talking to a woman yesterday, and I'm like, just go get a 1-ounce silver coin just to understand, because right now what's happening, we can talk about this a little bit, but what's happening in the banking industry, I'm not trusting the banks right now, but I do trust gold and silver. And so I'm like, go get a 1-ounce silver coin. It's going to cost you about $28 today. And you'll start, because you've put a little money down, you'll start to get more interested in silver and why is it up and why is the price down? And then you'll look at gold and how does that impact silver? And all of a sudden you become much more interested. And because of that, you become more educated about a thing called silver and precious metals. So real estate, you should start small. Stocks, any asset. Business, start small. Start a part-time business. Start a multi-level, join multi-level marketing. Start small and then learn. People want that big win right away. And you know what? That's rarely sustainable. Rarely. The people who are successful in my world, business, investing, they start small, they build. It might be a little more boring. It might take a little longer, but it's sustainable, and they're successful today because of it.
Yeah, that's so good, Kim. So let's go there. What are your favorite assets? Is it pretty much real estate, gold, and silver?
And business. So the 4 asset classes. Business could be your own business or business you invest in. I've just invested in a friends of mine who I've invested with before. They're expanding their business. So if I'm going to invest in somebody's business, I want to make sure that I can pick up the phone and talk to them at any time and I have a relationship with them. So there's business, there's real estate, which is I love real estate, always have loved real estate. Then there's paper assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. I'm not involved in that at all. I have very little. Our friend Andy Tanner teaches how to get cash flow from paper assets, which is pretty cool. I just don't have that mindset to go through those details. And then there's commodities, gold, silver, oil, gas, coffee, soybeans. So as you're looking at these different asset classes, what I found for me when I started out, real estate just spoke to me. I understood it. I like the physical. I like the tangible. I still like tangible assets, which you say, real estate, gold, silver, and then my business. But I don't like paper assets because I can't control them the way Andy does it with his cash flow teaching. But yeah, those I want to be able to control it. I want to be able to feel it, touch it. I want it to be real. So like paper money today is not real. And unfortunately, it's losing a tremendous amount of value as all this craziness unfolds in the world. So, yes.
No, that's really good, which is why we're, started this whole financial educational platform that allows people to get credit and funding in real estate, because after playing in the digital space, which I still very much like digital currency, I've been very blessed to do very well with building a digital asset portfolio. But if I have to compare both, right, digital can happen faster, but you can also lose a lot faster.
Yeah.
Hard assets, it's so consistent. You don't have to worry about somebody saying your tenant's not going to pay. I do want to talk a little bit about what's happening in banking, because I think that it's alarming, and I think that I want people to pay attention, and I want people to ask questions. And I was looking at some of the news reports, even going back, looking at some things that happened with FTX collapse last year, and then of course most recently Silicon Valley. And I was listening to them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's nothing to be worried about." And I was just like, "So you really think I'm about to believe that?" And so I'm hoping those of you that are listening, like, don't believe everything that you hear. Ask the questions. It doesn't make sense. Kim, we were talking about that. Get into that a little bit. I mean,
you said at the start, think for yourself, question what the media is telling you. Of course, okay, it was no surprise to me at all that they came out and said, okay, everything's going to be fine, don't worry, because they don't want to panic. They don't want to run on the banks. And of course, people started having a run on the banks. I immediately got a message from my banker saying, oh, our bank is fine. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, well, maybe not. So what I would recommend is, excuse me, what's happening is, Silicon Valley Bank was the first. Then there's First Republic, that was in trouble, that looking to get bailed out. And as we were talking about, what I don't understand, and I believe this to be true, I'm not absolutely sure, before the announcement of Silicon Valley Bank, HSBC had put an offer in to buy them. And that just disappeared. Why did that disappear? I'm like, I just asked the question, why, and start looking. Why did that happen? Credit Suisse. Oh my God, Credit Suisse, the darling of banks worldwide, got bailed out. So I'm very, very skeptical. And so I just look at, okay, let's say I go to worst case scenario and most realistic. So I don't know exactly what's happening in the banking system, but I don't like it and I don't trust it. So that's why I like gold and silver. Gold and silver, it's real money. Gold is real money. Silver is used in so many technology places. It's a commodity that's used. And I'm questioning how much money I really want to leave in the banks. I mean, I look at Silicon Valley. I have somebody close to me who had their business all their money was in Silicon Valley Bank. And right now they're kind of like out of business for a while until things turn around. So really get a question and just prepare as best you can for whatever may happen. Please don't sit back and go, just to your point, oh, they said they're going to take care of it. The government's going to take care of it. The banks will take care of it. They don't really care about you. They don't care about me and my money. They care about making a profit. They care about power and control. That's what they care about. They don't care about you as the individual depositor. And I won't even go into the whole other scenario, which is called a bail-in, because we've all heard about the bailouts.
I want to go into that. Let's go into that.
Okay. All right. Well, so a bailout is when the government bails out, let's say, a bank. Well, it's not really the government, it's the taxpayers. It's you and me who bail out the banks. It's the taxpayers. So the government pays the money, we get taxed, and that's how they get bailed out. If you look at what happened in Cyprus years ago, they did what was called a bail-in. And a bail-in is they just went into the bank and they took the depositor's money, took it, gone. That the FDIC had a meeting recently, a special committee of the FDIC, and that's what they were talking about, that may be the next scenario will be bail-ins. Anything a certain amount disappears.
It's gone. They were having an issue with Bank of America. Did you see that? No. 2 months ago? People were checking their accounts, and money was just gone.
The money was gone?
Just gone. Their money was just gone.
Wow.
In Bank of America. It was like a whole thing. If you Google it, it comes up. Kim, this is stuff we got to pay attention to.
Yeah, you really do. And you need to take some precautions. I think in Cyprus, what happened is they allowed people to take out like $100 to $300 a day. That was it. That's all they could get access to. So what happens to your business? What happens to you paying your bills? What happens to your mortgage? What happens?
So this is why I want people to really think, because I think and I want people to live their life to the fullest. I want them to have fun. I want them to create. I want all of that. But you've got to stop and really take a look. Where am I?
Yeah, that's a good point, because this is not about doom and gloom and go hide in a bunker.
Mm-mm.
It's about be prepared for whatever might be coming, but keep going, keep in motion, keep in action, keep running the businesses, keep doing the investments, don't stop, but just be wary. I look at real estate. I can't imagine that real estate's going to be a huge issue with the government intervention, except for maybe property taxes, but people need places to live, and the government cannot provide housing for everybody.
Yeah.
So I still think real estate is gonna be a good asset. I think there's going to be a ton of opportunity coming because of what's happening in the US and in the world. And I think people are going to find themselves in a difficult financial situation if they haven't taken the time to get educated and take some action. Then they could be in a world of hurt, but there's also then the opportunity for the people that are prepared.
Ooh, girl, when I say this is so good, which leads me to the next point. You got to stop and take some time to say, where am I?
Yeah.
Who do I need to be connecting with so I can get the answers and I can start implementing some of these things? Because it may not be 5 ounces a month you save. Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 2, maybe it's a cup of coffee. You know, we have a program where you can set up autosave for your gold and your silver, and they ship it right to you. The point is that you got to start taking action, because you can't just live your, you know, and a lot of women do this. You talked about this, like this fairy tale, like, oh my gosh, and as long as I have a man with the money, or, you know, I don't worry about that. I just, you know.
It's going to be fine. Oh, money, my eyes glaze over when I think about it. Yeah, all of that. Well, that's why the statistics are what they are, where divorce, the woman's standard of living after a divorce drops like 70-something%, well, his goes up. Yeah, seriously. And women after, you know, as we get older, because of divorce or death of a spouse or just bad money management, a lot of women find themselves in a financial disaster because they're not paying attention. I think that's probably the worst thing a woman can do, is to put all of her finances be dependent on somebody else, whether it's the husband, whether it's a family member, whether it's the government. That's probably the worst thing she could do today. And you mentioned about an account. One thing I like to recommend to people to do is to start an investment account. And it's very simple. It's what Robert and I have done for years and years and years, and we still do it today. But with every dollar that comes into our household, with every dollar that comes into your household, you take a percentage off the top. We take 10% off the top, goes into an investment account, and it sits there. And that's actually how I bought my very first little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, is I had this money accumulating, and it accumulates quickly. But with every dollar that comes in, 10% went into this investment account, and it grew. And this was before paying bills. That's off the top. Then you pay your bill. Because that's your future. That investment account is your future. So that's one way you can kind of do it. It's kind of automatic, and you don't have to really think too much about it, but you have to make it a habit. It's got to be that habit. Doesn't matter if it's 10% or whatever the percent is, but the habit of doing it with every single dollar, every single peso, every single yen. That's what's important, is the habit.
It's the habit. And I want to encourage, and here's the thing, I want to say this to married people, and especially to married women, and this could be for married men as well. If your spouse doesn't want to do that, you still do it. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you have to think, if I had to take care of myself, could I? Would my standard of living change? Would my lifestyle change? And so all we want is for people to just be thinkers and to put yourself in a position, because, Kim, the impact of poverty, the impact of lack, the impact of, all the time needing a bailout, like that's traumatic.
Yeah, that is traumatic. That is traumatic. And somebody said to me the other day, we're talking about, what does rich woman mean? And I'm like, well, it's about financial freedom. It's about freedom. It's really about freedom from the worry about money. and freedom from the worry of not having enough money. I hear women all the time, I don't know if I have enough money for retirement. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to stop working. And there's a formula. It's a simple formula to get out of that rat race and get out of that trap, because it is a trap. But yes.
Yeah. And I think we have to be careful who our mentors are, because there are a lot of people, on social, and everyone looks good and, just fabulous, but it doesn't mean that asset column is where it needs to be. And just because someone's offering because everyone's a coach right now. Everyone, I've never seen so many coaches in my life. Like, everybody's a coach. But I'm like, you need to be inspecting what is their private life. Like, let's talk about that just for a minute, because there are a lot of mentors, a lot of financial mentors, a lot of financial coaches. And don't get me wrong, I think there's some out there that are really doing amazing, but then I think there's a whole other sector that it's just a business for them.
Yeah. I want to see their financial statement. I want to see their asset column. I don't care how much income they have. I want to see if they're going to teach about investing, if they're going to teach about building a business, those numbers better be congruent with what they're teaching. Otherwise, they're just a fake teacher to me.
Ooh, girl. So here's the thing. If you're not living it privately, you shouldn't be teaching it publicly.
No. I like that saying. That's a good saying. Yeah. I don't want to learn from people that aren't doing it. I mean, my mentors are all people that were actively doing what it is I wanted to learn. All of them. Still today they are. So we can't stress that enough, can we, Jewel? It's like, you don't want to learn from fake teachers. You don't want to learn like a college professor. We all had the college professor. I had the accounting college professor who never was an accountant. I'm like, I had a business law attorney who was never an attorney, or he got kicked out or something because he was mad. He was an angry guy. I don't think he could make it as a lawyer, so he went to the university. But yes, you just want to find out, learn from people, and there's people out there very willing to share their knowledge, especially the entrepreneurial type. They're very willing to share their knowledge. It's one of the reasons why I like network marketing. Network marketing is great because you have a built-in support system, and people there that you're learning from, they want you to succeed. They want you to do well, because if you do well, they do well. But they're genuinely, in the really good companies, they genuinely want you to succeed in business and grow as a person. And that's important. The two have to go hand in hand. If you're not growing as a person, you're not going to grow in your business or your investments. They've got to go hand in hand. I'm a big proponent of personal development.
Personal development, I think, is huge, because the first person you've got to work on is yourself.
Right.
It wasn't until I was willing to take 1,000% responsibility for my life, 1,000% responsibility for, my last marriage. He was very abusive. I'm married to an amazing man now. He's very loving, but my ex-husband was very abusive. And I remember being so angry, and, he was physically, emotional, and financial. And it was like, one day it was like, baby, nobody made you marry him, and nobody made you stay.
Yeah.
So, and that, honestly, until I started saying my fault, my responsibility, nothing really changed.
Yeah.
Nothing. Nothing changed.
We used to do a course, and we talked a lot about responsibility. And the bottom level was lay blame. The one thing we all want to do is we want to blame somebody else. And then the level above lay blame, it's like, oh, it's all your fault. It's all your fault. This wouldn't have, I wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for him or for her or for this or for that. Then above a lay blame is justify. You're justifying why you're in this position. Well, I'm here because of this and because of that. But the level above all of that is taking responsibility for your life. I had a conversation. I talk about personal development. I had a conversation the other day, and I had read something that said, everything in your life, every single thing in your life is self-created. And I'm like, wow, everything. And I'm like, I went to my friend who's one of my spiritual mentors, and I said, I just read that everything is self-created. He goes, oh yeah. Yeah, everything in your life is because of you. I'm like, oh, shoot. I didn't like that answer. How much easier life is when you look at life that way, right, Jewel? It's so much easier. It's like, what did I do? How did I attract that? Why did I stay in this bad situation? I chose it. Yes. And sometimes it's hard getting out of as you know, it's hard getting out of these situations sometimes. And a lot of it has to do with the mental and emotional state that you're in. But that's sometimes the bravest, most courageous thing a person can do, especially a woman, if she's in a bad marriage, a bad work environment, dysfunctional family, is to cut it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because once you've cut it, you get so much stronger. Everything becomes so much clearer. And then you start taking responsibility for, your life, how you think, your emotional state. You start realizing all this is on me. You know what I mean? I have the ability. I remember when he first left and I was down, and it was like one day it was like I woke up and was like, go win, go become great. Like, go become great. And that's what I did. It's like, I don't have to wait for anybody else. Just go and become great. Kim, so the last bit of financial advice that you would give to the men and women that are listening right now, if you had to give them, 2 or 3 things, make sure they do this, what would those things be?
Well, on the big picture, I would say number 1, find out what you have and find out where it's at. Because a lot of women and men, they've got money in places that they don't even remember that they have. So, and if you're a woman and you're not taking charge of the financial situation, you need to know what you've got and where it is. And step number 2 is then you figure out how to make that money work for you. That's on the bigger picture. Step 1 and 2, that's how you do it. One of the first things I would do that Robert and I did is hire a bookkeeper. It could be an hour a month. Hire a bookkeeper, because the bookkeeper will tell you, this is how much money you have coming in. This is how much money you have going out. No, Kim, you're not making that much money. You're making this much. No, Kim, you're spending a lot more than you think you are, because you've got to know where you are in order, right, to get where you want to go. So I would say definitely hire a bookkeeper, just to hold you accountable. And then number 2 is treat your money as a business, because it is. We work so hard for our money, and then we don't learn anything about how to manage it, and especially how to grow it. So I always look at, you got the income statement, you've got the income expenses, you got assets and liabilities. The big aha for me came when I stopped focusing on income, more pay in my job, more hourly rate wages, more hours working, more money coming into that income. When I stopped focusing on that and started focusing on the asset column, if I bought another little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, that would be another $50 every month. If I did this, if I started this little business, I would have this much coming in every month. So it gets, after a while, you may want to do something different, than what you're doing. And knowing that you have that cash flow. I am the queen of cash flow. You know that, Jewel. I'm the queen of cash flow.
I love it.
My 2 favorite words, cash flow, because that's freedom, right? That's, to me, freedom. Our whole formula is, if you can have cash flow coming in from your investments that are greater than your monthly living expenses, you are financially free. So that's what it's about for me.
That's so good.
Statements too, Jewel, about, the importance of mentors, the importance of being around like-minded people, and question everything you're taught. Think for yourself. It's crucial. It's so easy to get caught up in, your parents said this, or your teacher said this, or your friend said this. I mean, I know so many people have tried to talk me out of deals who have never bought real estate, never bought, gold or silver, never started a business. I'm like, you don't even know. How can you give me advice? This is the funniest thing. I had a woman, she was just learning to play golf. I've been golfing for, quite a few years. And my handicap was a whole lot lower than hers. We're on the golf. she's giving me advice on my golf swing. I'm like, no, you haven't earned that right. You haven't earned that right.
She's like, girl.
Take advice from people that are legitimate, who know what they're talking about, who have done it, who have been there, learn from their mistakes as well as their successes.
Yeah, so good. I think it's just, the ego of man that just wants to say, I know. It's like, no, you don't know. Your results.
This was a woman. I'm just going to tell you, this was a woman, but typically that's, I think, one of the causes for divorce. If you're both golfers, is the husband always wants to give the wife advice on a golf course. Big mistake. Unless it's asked for, big mistake.
Exactly.
That should be a mantra of ours, Jewel. It's like, anybody that wants to give advice without permission should just have to shut their mouth.
Shut up. Without permission or results.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, I already know this year I have goals for myself, and I've already said I want more results. So I have to keep listening and keep asking questions to the right mentors who are where I want to be. You see what I'm saying? Exactly. And I think if we take on that mentality, we'll always be growing. I'm obsessed with growth. So I'm going to always be growing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to always be growing. I think only people that don't grow are the people who stop asking questions and forget that there's more. So even if you have results, there's more. And if you lean in on it, you're going to get the more. Right.
Yeah.
So this is so much fun, girl. We always have such a good time.
One other thing to that too is when you're comfortable, and the country, the U.S. was comfortable for a long time, and so I think we let things go, and we brought in weak leaders and all of this. But when you get comfortable, that's a kind of a kiss of death. You always want to be, as my friend who's a fitness coach said, you just want to get comfortable being uncomfortable all the time. Yeah. Which is not necessarily the easiest thing, but when you have those breakthroughs, and when you're afraid of doing something, but you still move forward and you have that breakthrough, that's the greatest feeling.
Yeah. No, you're right. This was so good. I know you guys were so blessed by today. I hope you took good notes and got a lot from it, and hopefully you go take action, ask some questions, make sure you hook up with the right wealth community. Definitely follow Kim Kiyosaki on Instagram, and what you have going on with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Get the book, Get Rich Woman. Ooh, child. And it's rising time. Girl, what I tell you, woo, listen, Kim will get you together. You just got to be willing to listen. So Kim, thanks so much for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Great.
And I'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.